So I thought I'd give you a look at something a bit different today, and this is some of the tree planting that I've done in my garden at home. So the first tree we'll look at is this, which is a plum, and it's opal. So this plant I bought this plant as a bare root plant from the nursery last year, and I planted it in November. It's still staked, so it's still being supported, and it's put on quite a bit of growth last year. So you can see this is the tip, and then this is last year's growth. So it's been a good plant, and the reason it's been successful is because I planted it at the right time of year. There was a limited or very short amount of time from when it was lifted in the nursery to when it was planted. So I pre-ordered it, and as soon as it came, I got it straight in the ground. The staking has stopped root rot, so it's allowed the roots to establish into the wider soil environment. It was watered through the dry spring, and it's doing quite well. Let's move over to the next plant. So this is a Morus alba, and it's come from, I brought this tree with me from our previous garden. So I transplanted it, and I transplanted it really at the wrong time of year in July, but because we've given it enough watering, it's been absolutely fine. And again, it's got a stake, and it's supported to stop root rot. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to establish a hedge along this boundary. So these are, I don't know whether you can see them very well. These are hornbeam. So these are, I bought these as cell-grown plants, which means they're about 50p each. So very cheap way to buy the plants. And again, these were bought in January last year and went straight in the ground. And you can see they're very, very, very small plants. So I've got canes supporting them, and then they're all tied to the canes to keep them up. And that's really to help get them upright and form a hedge, but also to help me with weeding, allow me to get around them nice and easily without pulling them out. And there's 100 plants went in this hedge, so really cheap way of making a hedge. So that's doing quite well. And then here we've got a hazel, and this is Kentish cob, and this was a containerized plant. So bought from a garden centre in a nursery, and it's doing quite well, establishing. No support because it's a multi-stem tree, and it came with quite a good root system. I've got another fruit tree here, and this is a damson, Farley's prolific, and you can see with this it's got again, it came as a bare root tree. So the support system is a vertical stake that goes in. So I put the stake in at the time of planting, before I backfilled, which means that you can be sure that you don't put it through any of the main roots, and you get it in really nice and firm. And again, it's growing really well. And I guess the key thing with planting a bare root tree of this size is minimizing that amount of time from when it's lifted in the nursery to when you plant it. Right, you can join me on the other side of the house in a minute. So behind me we've got a beech hedge that I've just planted. I planted this about 4 weeks ago. And again, these were bought as bare root plants, and they came mail order. And again, they've got vertical stakes in supporting them all. These are quite big really for bare root beech trees, but I wanted to try and form a nice hedge here. The previous planting actually failed, and it's because I've got honey fungus, so I'm hoping that these will succeed. So as a bit of a preventative measure, I put these in a root dip with some with a mycorrhizal inoculation, and I'm hoping that that will protect them from the honey fungus. So time will tell on that one. Even though it's very cold at the moment, that won't be causing any damage to the plants. In fact, the cold weather will reduce their transpiration and water loss. And as soon as there's warmth in the soil, the roots will begin to grow, even though you can't see any movement from the plants above the ground. If we come round, we've got this bit of hedging, which is going to divide the garden. And this is like a mixed country hedge. So I've got crabapple, hawthorn and blackthorn in the hedge. And these were planted last year, and they were planted as 1-year-old whips. And they're doing really well. They're really establishing nicely. So behind me there's a gap in the privet hedge, and I've removed 6 plants from the hedge because these were affected by honey fungus. And just behind me here, when we moved in, there was the stump of a spruce tree, and when I dug that out, you could see that it was riddled with armillaria. So using the stump as a food source, I think the armillaria moved across and took out this section of hedge. And privet is very susceptible to honey fungus. So I've dug out the infected plants and I'm ready to replant. And I've chosen to plant it with Griselinia littoralis, which is the New Zealand privet. And it's not really a privet, but it has a similar sort of leaf shape. And it is that's very resistant to armillaria, so hopefully it'll be a good hedge, although I'm a bit concerned about its hardiness, so we'll see whether it survives. It's supposed to be hardy to -10, but we shall see. That's what I've bought. So I've got the Griselinia healed in my polytunnel, so they again arrived bare root, and I bought them mail order, and I've dug a small hole and put them in it and covered the roots with soil to protect them from drying out. And I've got them in the polytunnel, and I'll wait until the weather's a bit better before I plant them. Perhaps should have ordered them a bit later in the year. We get to plant some pretty special trees in the garden, and this is probably one of the most special trees I'll have been involved in planting. So this is Ginkgo biloba, and this tree has been grown from seed that was gifted to us in 2005 through the Mayors for Peace programme. And this tree is grown from seed that was collected from a tree that survived the Hiroshima blast. And today marks the 75th anniversary of that tragic event. So it's a really important tree, and it will become really quite significant and make a big contribution to this area of the garden that we're planting it in. We're actually planting 3 of them, and we've got some special guests coming to plant them later. So it's been grown by the nursery team, and they've grown some really nice specimens from the seed that was given us. And we grow our trees in these special pots called air pots, and you can see they've got this sort of hedgehog appearance with holes all over them, and as the roots grow out, they poke out through these little holes, and then they're air pruned, which causes them to branch more, creating a really nice dense root ball, but it also prevents them girdling. And it works really well. We get really good establishment with plants like this. I guess we've been growing with them for quite a long time, but it's taken It's a long time to get our growing right with them, making sure we've got the watering right and making sure we're using the right potting mix. But we get really excellent trees produced by the nursery team. So it's always a pleasure to plant them.